This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by Carbonite Online Backup. Automatic and secure online backup for your home and small business computer files with plans starting at just $59.99 a year. Get the better backup plan today. Start your free trial at Carbonite.com. Use the offer code PC and get 2 bonus months with purchase. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is our 272nd episode, being recorded on October 9th, 2013. I'm Ryan Schrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Malventano.
And every week, I say, Jeremy needs a new microphone. And then every week, I forget. Here we go. I got a piece of paper here. I got a pen. I'm writing it down. Jeremy, Mike. Right, yeah. Okay, we're good
Not a
now.
new keyboard.
It was my cat, yeah.
It's just, your voice sounds different, and the background noise isn't worse. It just sounds different than everybody else's. So we got to get
That's
that fixed.
because it's Canadian.
True. So last week I told you guys about a giveaway we were having, courtesy of NVIDIA GeForce Battle Box, whatever it was. We gave away a copy of Batman Arkham Origins. I think it comes out this month now, right? It's out in October. And our winner was DVNamis, DVNamis, an actual user on the site, not an anonymous contributor. So congratulations to you. I will be emailing you a code that you can put into Steam. I don't know if it's a Steam code. I don't know where it is. You'll put the code in, and you have to wait for the game to be released. Congratulations. And then more good news, we're going to do that again this week. So if you're listening to this podcast after the fact, go to pcper.com/podcast, find the post for episode 272. There'll be a form at the bottom, name, email address, and secret phrase that we will get into later in the episode. And you can put your new secret phrase down there. If you already entered last week, obviously you can enter again. If you're listening to us live, which you can do that every week on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at pcper.com/live. If you're listening to us live or watching us live, you have to wait until tomorrow when the actual podcast post goes up with the form on it. I bet I saw 100 people just leave a comment on a post, and it is not the same thing as entering the form. So if you only responded as a comment on the post or on the podcast page itself,
I think people just like typing perpetual lotion engine.
They're going to be disappointed this time
I
because it's
certainly
going to
did.
be a different code word. I haven't figured out what it is yet, but I got a piece of paper here to write it down when we do, so we don't have any mix-ups this week. Finally, the last little thing I'll mention before we get into the show is if you want to join our mailing list, all you have to do is go to pcper.com/subscribe. And what does this do? Which is sign you up for all kinds of spam and crap? Nope. We send out an email almost every time we go live with an event. And all we need is your name and your email address. That's it. It signs you up for a mailing list. You can subscribe and unsubscribe at will once you actually start it. And we will send you an email whenever we go live. And it's convenient that way. And sometimes I don't forget. And now it works. So...
And sometimes I send personal pictures.
If you want a personal photo of Josh...
And by personal, we do mean personal.
Yeah, unsubscribe immediately. So, a slower week than normal. We actually have several things that were like almost ready for publication today. We'll have to wait until next week. Actually, that's going to be bad because I don't know if we're going to have an episode next week. I don't think we can have a podcast next week because Ken and I are both going to be out of the country.
Right. You'll be eating poutine with the best of them. Or the worst.
That sounds gross.
I'll just go to Josh Tech and we can record
Just go to joshtech.com. It's spelled with 2 Ks, by the way. Just 2, though. Only 2 Ks.
3 would be...
That would be unfortunate.
That would be...
Yeah.
You don't want to add that special K.
2 supremacy.
Nope. A couple of reviews to talk about this week. One, Steve Chardine posted a review of an ASUS gaming notebook, the cleverly named G75JX DB71. which is a complex name for a pretty awesome gaming system, actually. You can look at the specs here. It's a Haswell-based part, Core i7 4700 HQ. It is a quad-core, up to 3.4 gigahertz. It also has discrete graphics, GTX 770M with 3 gigs of frame buffer, 16 gigs of memory, a 1 terabyte hard drive, plus a 256 gig SSD. What is LCM? Alan, do you know what LCM is for the SSD?
LCM.
I don't know what that is.
Lowest common denominator.
Mana.
Just gonna
Doesn't
go
ring a
with the
bell.
good Crystal Matrix, but I like yours better.
17.3 inch 1080p screen, matte finish, if that intrigues you. MATTE for anybody that isn't sure what that is. Windows 8, 59 or an 88 watt hour battery, Bluetooth 4.0, etc. So USB 3.0. What'd you say? Light. No. Yeah. No, it's fine. USB 3.0, etc. Blah blah blah. Pretty good.
Windows 8.
Pretty good performance specs, I think. Design and portability. You can see some neat pictures of it on Steve's deck. I think the design of this system is really hit or miss. Like, you either love like the kind of angles of it or you don't like it. I think ASUS really started this.
He needs to seal this redwood better.
He does a
He's
little.
expecting to sell this house? Come on, man.
I think he already sold his house. So I don't know. Yeah, we get on his case. Get on his case.
Looks
in the
like
chat.
LCM is just the model name of the light on the SSD.
Okay. All right. The angles kind of started with like the Lamborghini when ASUS first got the Lamborghini brand, right? If you remember back in the day, I don't know if they still make any of those, but I like the angles. I like the design. It's a RAID. You can see here the 2 SSDs there. You got your memory modules. Let's scroll down to here. So the keyboard he actually liked a lot. The touchpad he liked a lot.
He cleaned that, because the way he was talking to me and what he was watching.
What? Oh, yeah. Well, a little damp cloth. Don't actually spray cleaner on the screen or keyboard. So here you can see the screen. It's a matte finish. It's like finding Sasquatch at this point in terms of monitors and laptops. And you can see like with full brightness directly in the sunlight. It's not great, but I think it's more readable than a fully glossy screen would be for sure. It's got giant vents on it. Accessible, you can see the battery life that he had here. 4 hours and 14 minutes of runtime. I think that's on like the most basic test, which is pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, the reader test. 4 hours 41 minutes. Besting. 414. 441 was the MSI GT60, so a little bit lower than the MSI GT60. Performance was good. Gaming performance is good. That's obviously kind of the target here. GTX 770M passed up really only by the GT60 that has the 780M in there, which obviously makes sense. So Diablo 3, Metro 2033, Bioshock Infinite, all good stuff there. The only hiccup with this laptop was we had issues with if you try to game on battery power, it is dramatically limiting performance. Like, it is pulling down the clocks, it is not letting them go up, and that he tried, uninstalling software, changing settings in software. We worked with ASUS and they finally said, yeah, that's just the way it works, right? Is that the GPU clock is at its minimum when you're on battery. So, even if the kind of issue I have with that is even if you just want to say, I realize the battery is going to die, but I'm on this flight, I want to game for an hour and a half or something like that, or an hour, or whatever it is, you don't have that option. It's a dramatic, like by half or more frame rate drop in a lot of these games. So pricing at $18.99 street price, so expensive, but not out of the world crazy expensive like some of the other gaming notebooks we've seen. So check out that review. I know we get a lot of people that ask about gaming laptops, and we're doing our best to kind of cover more and more of those. We have another laptop review that Steve's working on now, the MSI GE40, which is like a mid-range gaming machine. I think it's 14-inch with like a 760M graphics, I believe. So,
oh, come on. Can't you remember in 1996 or so, a decent laptop was $3,500? And that was actually
And it was no 10-pound laptop.
It was what?
It wasn't 10 pounds.
It was probably like 12.
15, 20, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I think that the gaming laptop market has improved dramatically. I wish they would move past the Alienware M17 and M18 designs. Like, I still feel like even with this ASUS one, it's kind of like, it doesn't have to look like that necessarily. Once it's open, it's not that bad, but when it's closed, it kind of looks like something that a 16-year-old kid would strive to have, as opposed to somebody that is a semi-professional that just happens to like the game. I don't know. This is obviously something you want to carry around school or around, work conventions or anything like that. But
So buy an Ultrabook, right?
obviously, buy
yeah.
all the Ultrabooks. They don't sell Ultrabooks anymore. Now it's 2-in-1s. That's not the case, but 2-in-1s, which is a horrible alternative to convertible, which actually made sense.
But you know what? The porn industry is so happy that they're giving free advertising.
2-in-1.
Yep.
That's right. Let's talk about the news of the week, guys, so I can remove that comment from my mind.
Wait. I thought we were going to talk about the other big article that you wrote about.
I am right now.
Should we not? Do you want to skip it?
Which
Nah,
one?
no one cares.
What?
Radeon R9
That's
280X?
what I was going to.
No, you were saying news of the week.
It is the news of the week. It is
It's the next
story
article
of the week.
and not news.
Oh,
even
I
though it
see.
is
The stuff I
news,
publish
but
is
it's in
just
article
fluff.
form.
It's the story of the week, and it happens to be a review I wrote. A lot of times, the big story of the week is not one of the reviews we wrote, except in our own minds, which is what keeps us going from week to week, right? So,
Semantics.
yes,
Semantics.
the release of the AMD Radeon R9 R7 relaunch of graphics cards. So up front, as I say in the article and in the video review, this is not a Hawaii review. The Hawaii GPU is not out yet. If every review of the Hawaii doesn't have that YouTube video embedded.
Just call me Jack Lord.
So this is the R9 280X, R9 270X, R7 260X. So I'm going to do one thing right out here out of the gate that may
I
upset
could
some
say
people.
that again. I couldn't hear you over my awesomeness and my wife screaming in the background.
Let's move to this. I want to show you this table that's on the last page of our article that I think sums up what I think a lot of people think the story is, right? So here is the R9 280X, followed by the HD 7970 gigahertz edition, and then the 270X compared to the 7870 gigahertz, and then the 260X compared to the HD 7790.
Do you know how long I spent on that table going up and down with my mouse,
Oh, it's
watching
awesome
it
to watch.
highlight
Yeah.
the rows?
Nice.
Showing off that template. That's
Singing the
It's
Hawaii
sexy.
5-0 song. I was pretending I was surfing
So
up
let's
and down.
take a look at just these two columns, the 280X and the 7970. You'll notice that they're very similar across the board. 4.3 billion transistors, 2048 shaders, about within 50 megahertz clock, same memory width, same memory clock, a little bit lower compute performance in the 280X, same texture unit, same ROPS, same frame buffer. Okay.
Hey, look, it's kind of black and yellow. Black and yellow.
Now look at the 270X and the 7870 gigahertz edition. You'll notice, okay, yeah, 1280 shaders, yeah, clock speed's pretty much 256, yeah, okay. Faster memory speed on the 270X, that's nice. Okay, okay, a little bit higher. Okay, all right. And now look at 260X and 7790, and you see those specs are very much similar. Make no mistake, these are rebranded products or repositioned or whatever term you want to use. The rebranding is they're getting away, they're removing the word HD from their line, which I think makes sense because HD was over in 2007. It's no longer the Radeon HD 7000 series. Now it is the Radeon R9 series or R7 series. And the 280X is the replacement of the 7970. 270X is the 7870. 260X is 7970. Or I'm sorry, 7790. Jesus, that's a pain in the ass.
Get it right.
So these are rebranded parts, great, but they're also repositioned. And repositioned means that they're dropping the prices essentially. The R280X, which you can see here, we got the ASUS top model, TOP, top all caps, not like the best model, like top. I don't know what it stands for anymore. It is $299. That is the reference speed price for the 280X is $299, which is like a $70 to $80 price drop from just like in August for the same product.
But better.
It's a little bit better product, right? It's
Well, it's
a
got
little bit
better output
slower.
functions.
It's a little bit slower, but it has some feature improvements. We'll talk about that. The R9 270X is now $199. That's like, let's say, $20 price drop or something. Not nearly as much, but in the last
Still significant.
30 to
10
60
to
days.
15%.
Yeah. And it has better performance than the 7870 thanks to its improved memory speed and a little bit higher GPU clock. And then the R7 260X is the same Bon Air GPU that we saw with the 7790. This is going to be sold for $139, which is about the same price that we were finding the 7790s.
Well, that was for
last
the
year.
1 gig version.
Was
The
it?
2 gig was
Okay.
about 15 to 20 bucks more expensive.
Okay.
And now this one is 2 gigs.
2 gigabytes.
2 whopping gigs.
So the feature changes that happen with this are new display output configurations. So pretty much mirroring what NVIDIA did with the GTX 700 series. Did they do that with the 600 series too? I think they might have. Yeah, they definitely did with the 600 series. 2 dual-link DVI, a full-size HDMI, and a full-size DisplayPort. And that to me is the best combination I have seen on a graphics card yet.
From AMD.
Because, like on that
From anybody.
the Lightning's, the R7970,
Okay.
it had only 2 single-link DVI ports.
Yeah.
It was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, so this allows you, like, if you have two 30-inch monitors, you can run them off the dual-link DVI. Boom, you're done.
You don't have to play with DisplayPort and transfer or an adapter.
No, you don't have
Yeah,
to.
was
buy
annoying.
$100 powered active.
They're a
Well,
lot cheaper
mine
than
were
that
only
now.
$49
Yeah.
a piece, but still.
Yep. Now, what's also interesting is because of this change, it's also updated how you can connect monitors to set up an Eyefinity configuration. So before, you used to have to use at least one DisplayPort connection, DVI, HDMI, DisplayPort. But a lot of graphics cards didn't have DVI and HDMI. They had one or the other. So you had 2 DisplayPorts. And DisplayPort monitors still aren't as popular as AMD believed they would be. So now you can use DVI, DVI, and HDMI to power your 3 monitors. And if you want to use 120 hertz displays, whether that be for 3D or just 120 hertz refresh rates, you can use dual-link DVI, and fast HDMI. So you don't even have to use DisplayPort in that regard, right?
But if you use DisplayPort on these cards, they use it right.
Yeah, they do it just fine. And now that means every single one of these cards will support 6 monitors because
Yeah.
you can do DisplayPort out to the MST hub, which apparently exists now, and then you can do HDMI, DVI, DVI. So you don't have to worry about Eyefinity 6th edition graphics cards or anything like that. If you want to do 6 monitors, go crazy. You can do it. That's kind of like the big change from the 7970s and the 7870s and that kind of
But
thing.
I mean, as much as DisplayPort has personally pissed me off,
Sure.
because hey, I've got to pick up 2 active adapters to be able to use 3 monitors.
Right.
At least on the past generation of card.
Yep.
In this case, we now have that DisplayPort hub, so 1 plug, 1 adapter, 3 monitors.
Yep.
This makes sense to me.
Now,
Yeah, but how sexy are these adapters? I mean, look at them. Look how
I've
subtle
got-
they are.
off, but
Look
I
at
bet
that
I've got
subtle curve.
20 of those here of different shapes and sizes. They come in all shapes and sizes, Josh. I know you've heard that. So,
For her pleasure.
what has not changed with these cards is any frame pacing issues. If they existed as of last week, they exist today. The 13.11 driver, I think the beta just came out yesterday or today, is now available to the public. That's the driver we used in our testing. It has the same frame pacing and incremental improvements that they've had since the 13.8 release. But Eyefinity frame pacing is not addressed still, and 4K 60 hertz frame pacing is still not addressed. That is still coming late in the fall, I'm being told. So these new cards do not implement any changes or fixes to Eyefinity or for Crossfire. They work the exact same. They are literally the exact same ASICs that existed before, only they exist today. Again, at a lower price, which is good. DX11.2 support, not a whole lot there, but it's there. Mantle support is built into these, but Mantle support is also built into the HD 7000 series. So is DX11.2 support. So those aren't new or exclusive features to that. I forgot to mention on the 260X, it does support True Audio technology, which is the integrated fully programmable audio
Audio
DSP. Right. Well, there's multiple DSPs in it, but it's an audio controller built into the silicon of the GPU. It does not use the GPU resources for compute. It has its own resources. The only way it interacts with the actual GPU is that it can read the frame buffer of the GPU. And
read local memory, not the frame buffer, I guess, if you want to talk about that.
it can it can read that in shared memory, and that's how it could possibly be cool, where now the sound controller doesn't just know what audio it's getting, it knows where all the characters and items in the world are, and it's like actually doing computational sound as opposed to simulation sound, which is a really cool idea. The problem is there's no games out that support it yet. AMD has shown Murdered Soul Suspect, which is just a weird name, Thief.
Oh yeah.
And Lichdom. I don't know if you guys remember Lichdom. You guys remember that?
Oh wow, who could forget that?
And now for something else.
Now those are 3 games that have confirmed to use True Audio. I will use this interjection to point out there was a story that went around from a guy who said that Battlefield 4 was going to use True Audio. That is wrong. This guy also said that Newegg sold through 8,000 pre-orders for the Battlefield 4 version of the 290X.
Yeah,
That's wrong.
That is also wrong.
wrong.
Newegg never had pre-orders
Mr.
for it.
Peterman, right? The guy
yeah.
who does the catalog.
Yeah, exactly.
Jay Peterman.
Jay Peterman. That's correct.
Yes.
No, I like that. That's a good job. So if you look at our review, which I encourage you guys to do if you listen to this, go to pcpro.com and look at the review. I did not include benchmarks for the 7970, the 7870, or the 7790 because they are pretty close to identical, and they're going away as of next week. Like, what's out there is out there, and it's going to be gone. The relevant comparison now is the 280X against the NVIDIA cards, the 270X against NVIDIA cards, and so on. And in fact, in our benchmarks, you'll see an interesting comparison. The 280X at $299 compares against the GTX 770, which is $399, so a full $100 more, and the GTX 760 that was $249, so $50 less than the 280X. So the 280X is kind of sandwiched in between these two products. So you'll see that comparison. And the 270X pretty much goes head-to-head against the GTX 660 at $200. And the 260X goes against the 650 Ti Boost. So a lot of interesting numbers to go through. I'm not going to step through anything one by one, but let me show you one set. Let's go to BioShock Infinite. And what you'll see here, other than fancy screenshots, is that the 280X 3GB versus the GTX 770 2GB are very similar in performance, with the slight edge actually going to AMD at 1080p. Well, let's scroll down a little bit and look at 2560 by 1440. Oh, look, the advantage is still on the 280X's favor. And you can look at these two graphs here, and you'll see that the average frame rate is definitely higher than the 770, and it's definitely higher than the 760. So the problem
and more consistent.
Yeah. You see, the problem for NVIDIA is that blue line is $100 more expensive than that orange line.
Yeah, because BioShock Infinite actually takes up about 2.4 gigs of video memory space.
That is why you
levels.
see this graph, right?
What?
That's why you see this graph. So notice
exactly.
The green and blue lines have these sharp stutters, and it's very apparent when you're watching it in real time too, that these stutters happen. But the orange line hasn't. I think it has one of those. The green and blue lines have a lot. That is the advantage of having 50% more memory on your graphics card.
Because, you don't have to page that stuff out.
Right. Let's look at Metro Last Light. Here's another game. Let's look at now 2560 by 1440, and you can see here that the orange line is pretty consistently a little bit higher than the blue line. And they're both fairly consistent in terms of like frame times and having low frame variance. Performance, pretty much equal. But again, the 280X is going to be priced $100 less than the current price of the 770. So that's a problem for NVIDIA. The other problem for NVIDIA is if we look at how the 270X performs, you'll see here that the orange line of the 270X greatly outperforms the green line that represents the 660, which is the equal price part. and it actually is as good as the $50 more expensive part, the GTX 760 2GB. The 260X is not fair as well. It loses quite handily in many cases, but I don't. And not as many people are as interested in that particular part here.
Come on, that's like one of my favorite GPUs of quite some time.
7790.
Yeah, it's just so efficient.
Yeah,
it
but
runs
you can,
as fast as an HD 5870.
At this point, at $139, it's hard to tell anybody who is watching a show like this or listening to a show like this not to spend $60 more and get the 270X. Like that's how I look at it, right? Don't get me wrong, I know the sub $150 market is where the majority of graphics are sold, the majority of discrete graphics are sold, and we pay attention to that, and we have a whole slew of benchmarks from it. But it's hard not to be, a little bit disappointed because the GTX 650 Ti Boost outperforms it. It's not as efficient. Its power consumption is definitely higher. If we look here, you can actually see that 650 Ti Boost is using 40 watts more power than the new R7 260X/7790, which is a lot, especially for this tier of graphics card. But I don't know. It's hard for me to not be a lot more excited about where they price the 280X and the 270X.
Yeah, but it's the Ninja part.
I'm sorry, the what?
The Ninja part.
Because it had the secrets in it?
It's got the secrets.
So the 260X has true audio in it. But here's the secret. The 7790 has had true audio in it the whole time. It was actually their test chip. But the drivers aren't there to enable it anyway.
Yeah.
Also,
yes.
I wrote this in the story. I don't know how much AMD wants people to know about it, but it also has the new Crossfire implementation in it. Even though it has the bridge on top, it also has the other version that we'll be talking about soon,
on bottom,
which may be able to fix some of the Eyefinity and 4K issues. But it's not the right platform to really demonstrate Eyefinity Crossfire performance. In reality, it just doesn't have the throughput and horsepower to really do that. So,
but still, it's exciting and it's interesting, and
it is.
A lot of changes are going to be ported back to the.
So, what do you think about these graphs here? Performance per dollar. Now, it's hard to really compare across price segments for this because inherently, as you go up the price stack, normally, when you go up the price stack, you are decreasing your performance per dollar. For example, actually, look at the NVIDIA stack. The 660 is more cost efficient than the 760, which is more cost efficient than the 770. Right? That's how we have always seen it. And it's definitely the case here where the 270 is a little bit more cost efficient than the 280X, but it's a fairly slim margin. Look at the difference between the 760 and the 770 compared to the 270X and the 280X. And that the 280X and the 270X are, the 280X is more cost efficient than the GTX 660, right? In this particular title. And it's pretty close here in Battlefield 3. And then it's awfully close here in Metro Last Light as well. I mean, AMD priced these extremely aggressively.
Extremely aggressively?
Extremely aggressively, superbly. And
outstandingly.
Right. Part of you, because part of us as technologists, people who love technology and want to see improvement, you're disappointed that the same GPU that I reviewed in December of 2011 is being released today in October of 2013 as a new card.
But it's $300 less than when you first did it.
Right. So the guy who the part of me and the part of our audience that wants new cool stuff is disappointed by that. But the part of me and the part of our audience that actually has to pay for stuff should still see the advantages of what AMD has done. And this puts a whole lot of pressure on NVIDIA
to rebrand their cards?
Well, I think NVIDIA would be committing suicide at this point to keep the prices that they have on the 770 and the 760. Well,
they won't be.
They have to come down. They have to come down. Well, sure. The 6.
And on October 15th, will they be dropping the prices of the 780 and the Titan?
I don't know. What's on
That's a
October
good
15th?
question.
I don't know. That's halfway towards Halloween. candy prices just jump. And
Is that the
everything else
rumored
goes
release?
down.
Is that the rumored release of the 290s and stuff?
Supposedly.
Okay.
It's either a trick or a treat.
One or the other. So that's pretty much the whole review. The cards actually are going to be available on October 11th. They weren't available as of this sale. I'm sorry, as of this review, I guess, or this podcast for that matter. So it's interesting. It would be, I bet AMD would have sold a ton of R9 280Xs this week had they been available for sale, 270Xs as well. This gives NVIDIA enough chance to say, I don't know, October 10th or 11th, suddenly the GTX 770, instead of being $399, is $319. Now it's a totally different discussion.
It's a whole new ball game.
I don't know if they'll do that. As a customer,
Have they ever done that?
like
Really?
just cut their prices.
Their price cuts have been glacial as compared to typically what AMD has done.
But keep in mind, when the 7970 was out, AMD came out with the 580.
what
Yeah.
NVIDIA?
I'm sorry,
came
NVIDIA came out with the
680.
580, right, and undercut that price. Was it the
Wait,
680?
what? 680.
I'm sorry.
No, the 680.
So the 680 came out and undercut the 7970 gigahertz edition.
Well, it's because it was a smaller chip and less expensive components. Because
Yeah,
it
but
didn't-
NVIDIA had never done that before. AMD had always been the company that had to come out at the lower price,
true.
right? And NVIDIA finally was like, you know what? We're tired of this crap. They have a good part, but they could have come out and matched the price, right? Because they were better on efficiency. They had cool features like GPU boost. And there would have been an argument that their part is worth the same dollar amount. Instead, they
Can
decided
I
to
play
undercut it.
the devil's advocate here?
No.
Advocate. When the 7970 came out, there was a ton of backlash about how expensive it was, even though it was
$650.
kind of in line with what previous models were, like the GTX 580,
Yep.
the HD 6970, and the performance it offered. But still, people were like, hey, AMD has been known as the value proposition. Why in the hell are they doing it so high? It's a next generation part. It's not costing them this much. I mean, where's our goods? And NVIDIA really tapped in on that with the GTX 680 because the price was lower, but not significantly lower.
Didn't they launch at $500? And the 7970 launched
Or
at
just a hair over.
$649, right? So I don't know.
But it started a huge price war,
It
which
did.
was lovely.
And I think this will do the same thing. I think NVIDIA is not going to be able to sit on where it's at now.
No, I mean, the 660, the 650 Ti, they've already said are coming down. They're going to re-release 760. We don't know exactly what the re-release is going to be. Is it going to be slightly faster, maybe more power efficient, or maybe just cheaper? But their Digitime's already said that, this is coming. And
All right.
frankly, we
I
all
honestly
knew this
hadn't-
was going to happen.
Honestly, I hadn't heard any of that yet. So, okay. Interesting.
I posted it on the website today. I can't remember what the name of it is, though.
Was it Josh Tech?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might have been.
All right. So go read that review. It's a wonderful review, if I do say so myself.
Wunderbar.
Now, I will say, I gave the 280X and 270X silver awards because of their aggressive price performance stance, right? It was hard not to. Had AMD come to me and said, magical surprise, here's a driver that fixes Eyefinity Crossfire performance and 4K Crossfire performance,
Don't do that, you bastard.
it would have been editor's choice. It would have been like, this is an amazing thing. You guys have, gone above and beyond. But as it is now, they're still really good parts. If you're a single GPU user, I think these are now by far the best cards for their price. And NVIDIA is going to have to work at proving to people what's going on. Oh, yeah. And by the way, you don't get free games with these.
That kind of blows because
I
you can
missed
get
that.
a HD 7970 9 gigahertz edition for $269 after rebates with 3 games.
Yep.
Pick
Now,
them
those
up
are going to be gone.
while you can.
Yeah, those are going to be gone soon. And AMD said they don't. I've kept asking, until hours before the launch. I was like, so what's the deal with the Never Settle thing? They're like, yeah, we're not going to do it with those.
So that forever bit was just a joke?
Never settle forever until we have new products. I'm guessing. I'm almost positive that they will come back at some point. I just don't know when.
Maybe BF4.
I don't know. I feel like I get the impression that they're doing that bundle with the 290X and Battlefield 4. I get the impression that people at EA and DICE are so protective of Battlefield 4 that they will not want it to be a pack-in. They don't want it to be seen as like a cheap game that want to go in there. I think AMD would love to do that, but I don't think they have that big a pocketbook.
Then I guess
On
that's
the other hand,
be...
I mean, hey, you're partnering with Thief and Lichdom, saying, hey,
Yeah.
this is a brand new audio effect that's only
Sure.
going to be
They should
on
be
these
packaged.
games.
Yep.
Be nice to put one of those games in with a card, you know?
It sure would. It sure would. Sure would. Sure would.
Yeah, Robin Hood would do it.
All right. So go check out that article. We are going to take a quick break here. We're giving Ken a second to thank today's podcast sponsor. So have a listen. This episode of the PC Perspective Podcast is brought to you by Carbonite Online Backup. Your life is on your computer at home, and your livelihood is on the computers at your small business. To really be protected, you need online, off-site, in-the-cloud backup from Carbonite. With Carbonite, your files are automatically and continually backed up, so you never have to think about it. Once you have Carbonite, the computer disaster isn't really a disaster because Carbonite makes it easy to restore your backed up files. Over 1 million customers trust Carbonite to protect their home and small business computer files with plans starting at $59.99 a year. Your better backup plan for home and for your small business is Carbonite. Start your free trial today at Carbonite.com with the offer code PC and get 2 bonus months with purchase. That's Carbonite.com, and the offer code for 2 bonus months is PC. Ta-da! We have monetization.
Sound so professional. Professional.
Monetization of this
Oh
crap
my
we talk about
God,
again.
it's monetization. Porn to beer.
I will say,
Back up.
from personal experience, Carbonite has saved me a huge headache because when my wife's laptop died, I had installed that on her laptop with her having no idea that it was really on there, and she freaked out when the hard drive went kaput.
Did you laugh and then go into the backyard and bury it and say, eat it? Suck it.
No, I didn't.
Suck it, wife.
Nope.
No?
Instead, I fixed
Wow.
it, and I was the hero. And I have Carbonite on my machine here at the office, on my machine at home, and on my wife's laptop. So,
And this is why Josh sleeps in the doghouse.
right, yeah. See, Josh, if you would install Carbonite on your wife's computer, maybe she would like you.
I just talked to her in Morgan Freeman voice.
All right, let's actually talk about some news for this week. Arduino and Intel bring you the Galileo. Jeremy, what the hell is this?
Figaro. It's essentially a nice little Arduino shield. It's the first time that Intel has sort of delved into this, and there's a reason for that. They have the Quark.
Ah, yes.
Right? So, hey, we've got somewhere else to sell it. And one of the ways that I stumbled upon it was actually a wonderful quote from MakeBlog, where they were talking with the current CEO of Intel, who was talking with one of his engineers saying, why do you keep using those Arduino boards? We'll give you free stuff. You can just test it on Intel stuff. No, I'd rather stick with the Arduino community. It sort of set off a light in the guy's head to say, maybe this is something we should get into. And so, boom, all of a sudden they've released this. It's a 400 megahertz Intel Quark SoC, 256 megs of DRAM directly on there. It's got 100 megabyte Ethernet port, micro SD, RS-232, and a USB host and client, as you'd expect. But it also has a mini PCIe slot. Now, this opens up something that the Arduino community has not really seen before, at least without not sort of customizing their own board to do it. So now you've still got compatibility for all of the various shields that are out there, but you can now also start to play with mini PCIe cards. This is going to be very interesting, I think, to the hacking community and the prototyping community, in the way that they can sort of design new systems, new functionality on what is a tiny little board. I mean, that giant silver piece is the Ethernet connection.
It's kind of impressive to see that Intel's in this space, right? Because they never have. Ken, how can we improve our switching board with this?
More megahertz.
More megahertz, Ken says. All the megahertz.
You know, this is designed for people who are from a poor family. Nobody loves them. No responsibility. Galileo.
Figaro.
Magnifico. I'm just
All right.
a poor boy.
Do we know when that's going to be out?
Poor family.
When do we know when that's going to be available, Jeremy?
This one they're sort of talking about before the end of the year.
Okay.
They haven't really put out a release date. At the same time this came out, there was another one, which was also the tray board, which is sort of two trays or two Arduinos in one. That's more 2014. From what we're hearing, this one maybe by the end of the year.
Hey, Ken, remind me to email Intel about this. Show them that project you were working on and have them send this over. All right. I don't know if you guys heard this last week. Samsung is a big cheater. They cheated on all their benchmarks for their new Galaxy Note 3, and it turns out they're not the only ones.
Don't you mean Android is a big cheater?
No. Android operating system itself it does not cheat. It's the vendors that customize it are the cheaters.
Oh, you mean driver optimization, I think is the politically correct term, right?
We can call it whatever you want. Basemark X Creator commented on it, though. They sent out an email essentially kind of right after this happened and said, it has come to our attention that the Galaxy Note 3 may be targeting our benchmark, Basemark X, right, where's mission is to provide trusted performance evaluation tools that you can depend on. Therefore, we have produced an updated version. So they fixed it pretty much that day. And then I asked Tero Sarkinen, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that,
yeah,
founder of Rightware, what could be done to prevent this type of unfair performance skewing going forward? And the bad news was, he said, every benchmarking application out there can be targeted by a new handset or tablet, and no one can really prevent it. What makes a difference is, will the benchmark vendor do something about it when it's recognized? They said they take their mission very seriously. We monitor day in and day out what is going on. As in this case, we noticed the Note 3 is targeting Basemark X. We immediately provided the press with a version that the handset is not able to detect. Maybe they renamed it to Quark.
Quack.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe they renamed it to Quack. You know?
Yeah.
And I really do not understand what's going on in that screenshot.
That is so that boat is ancient, and it's on a dried up ocean bed. And then there's
I thought
a
it was
spaceship
like
flying
pointing
over
a
it.
harpoon at a whale, and Kirk came and...
It's better if you see the benchmark in motion, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't think BlackBerry runs that one.
So it's interesting to see this kind of cropping up. It really is the exact same thing as Quake Quack, but now everybody's doing it all of the time, apparently. So hopefully now that people are noticing it, they're recognizing it, they're writing about it, publicizing it, and publicly shaming these companies, hopefully they'll not do it anymore or something. I don't know. We'll see.
Do you remember back in the ancient days when the Pentium 3 1.114
Okay.
came out?
I do.
And suddenly Kyle came out and said, well, you know, I tried this and it wouldn't compile Linux. And of course, Kyle, in his entire time, had never compiled Linux on his website.
Okay.
Where do you think that came from?
I don't, what?
I think
Well,
it's
I
just
can
funny.
remember Charlie pigeonholing an Intel rep back in the Sandy Bridge days.
I don't know where any of this conversation is going all of a sudden.
I'm just saying that people don't find this stuff out without help from other people.
Oh, so you say like AMD would say, hey, make sure you compile Linux with that Intel 1.14 and all of a
yeah,
sudden it
tell us
doesn't
how
work.
that goes.
It's probably 1.333 if I know my multipliers.
Yeah, something like that.
And I got some really advanced math for you to do on this Pentium that you should try out.
Steam machine specifications revealed, kind of. So this came out on October 4th. Scott posted this, that Steam announced that they were going to have 300 prototype machines. 300 is all. And they were going to distribute them unevenly throughout the Steam community. There were going to be a range of specifications. The GPUs were going to be either a Titan or 780 or 760 or a 660. So sorry if you got the 660 and your neighbor got the Titan, because damn it.
Damn it all to hell.
CPU is either
Because you're
going to
what,
be
1 in 35,000 to get one of these?
yeah.
Which is better than lottery, but still.
Yeah. CPUs were all Haswell based. RAM 16 gigs on the CPU, 3 gigs on the GPU. That's not. I'm sure some of those are 2 gigs on the GPU. Storage was a 1 terabyte hard drive with an 8 gigabyte SSD for a hybrid SSD.
Shid.
It's a shid.
What is this shid?
It's a hybrid SSHD.
Alan, tell us about the SHID.
The SHID.
Yeah.
We've reviewed them. We've published on them.
And I'll tell you what, they're shid.
Don't you read the website? No.
Jeremy, what was that website again?
Penstarsis?
Just a
Josh Tech. Kika.
Power supply 450 watts, dimensions 12 by 12 by 3, which is
So
basically
it's bigger than a bed box.
It's about the size of that, like those Digital Storm things maybe that we reviewed, like the mini ITX style systems. They don't talk about the motherboards and stuff. So it's interesting that they've got like a mix of hardware in there. It was interesting for a little while, at least, that they were selecting NVIDIA hardware. NVIDIA was out promoting the fact that they were using GeForce hardware in there. However, a reporter at Forbes.com says Valve confirms official AMD-powered Steam machines for 2014. Apparently, the note from Doug Lombardi stated somewhere, if I can get through all of these...
Words.
Well, these overlays
Links.
and stuff.
That's
Let's
nice.
see.
Just keep clicking.
Here we
the
go.
X's.
Here we go. Yeah. In 2014, there will be Steam machines commercially available with graphics hardware made by AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel. Valve has worked closely together with all 3 companies on optimizing their hardware for Steam OS and will continue to do so in the foreseeable future. So he's saying that there will be commercial units available. The story says that Valve confirms official AMD-powered Steam machines. I don't know. Valve is obviously, the prototypes are still based on GeForce cards rather than Radeon cards, rather than Intel integrated graphics. You know, that says something at least going forward.
Yeah, it's
There are
saying
NVIDIA
that
employees at Valve?
I don't think
There
so.
are.
Sure.
it's saying that Valve has contacted AMD and Intel and said, "Get your stuff together in Linux because we're going to be pounding this like, well." Jeremy, is your mom still alive?
She is.
Good.
So this is kind of interesting. So Doug Lombardi's email was preceded by a peculiar one from AMD's internal PR, seemingly to multiple members of the press, which stated, quote, "You've asked questions around Valve's recent announcement of Steam OS and Steam machines, and we're wondering if AMD was, quote, left out from their prototype program. This couldn't be further from the truth. AMD is very actively engaged with Valve on these products and campaigns, but since we'd like you to hear of this from Valve directly, please email Doug Lombardi, who is the Vice President of Marketing at Valve, for their official statement on AMD's involvement in the Steam machine prototype program." Doug Lombardi's statement said nothing about the Steam machine prototype program, I should note.
Did they send you that email?
You know what? No. And I even emailed Doug specifically, and I didn't get that reply email. Whether or not it was a form thing, obviously, to each person or not. So, you know, it's extremely odd that AMD effectively asked members of the press to chase this story on their own.
The
rather than issuing their own
details
press
of my
release.
Linux life are quite inconsequential.
You know, obviously AMD doesn't want to have any indication that their graphics architecture has a shortcoming in any facet of computing ever, world, forever. So that includes, you know, they're in the consoles, they're releasing very good parts in the PC, maybe new parts soon as well. And the Steam announcement kind of came out right before the Hawaii product, and so it kind of put a little kink in the armor, I guess. But it's an odd story. It's an odd the way it came down, where you got an email from AMD saying, "Hey, why don't you contact Doug Lombardi at Valve about that? Why not just get a statement from Doug and send it out to all the press and be done?" It was very weird. I don't know. Internal politics are stupid. Hey, Jeremy.
Yes.
Do you think technically inclined customers will catch on to things?
Well, you know, there's been a pair of companies that have kind of annoyed me this week.
There's not very many companies left that don't.
This is also true. But there were two stories that I ended up putting out, which came back to back and were a little bit ridiculous. First off, yesterday it was revealed that NVIDIA limits the number of monitors you're allowed to use on Linux to provide parity in experience between Windows and Linux users. So the Linux users who were used to being able to just spew out to however many monitors they could actually manage to do have just found out that NVIDIA is now limiting you to 3 monitors on current hardware and current drivers. It's perfect on purpose. And somehow they didn't think that the Linux community would figure this out. You know, the guys that provide updates to kernels that bug track the US government, which was hilarious today, but do bug trackers that reverse engineer drivers. And, you know, we'll just put this artificial limit in here and no one's going to get annoyed. And so this, you know, it's not been a good week, but this sort of did not cheer me up. And then I find out that AMD is actually putting a specific chip, as I refer to it, an Apple-like hardware check on the IIC bus of their adapters, so that if you are using a DVI to HDMI adapter that did not come with one of your Radeon cards, the audio signal's blocked.
This doesn't make any sense to me.
It makes no sense to me either.
The adapters that come with your AMD Radeon cards are as generic as they could possibly be.
Apparently not. There is a special feature on them.
I'm gonna
Well, they're
drill into one.
transparent, and they say ATI on them.
Do they really?
Yes, they're branded.
From retail cards?
I have one. It's friggin' branded. Now, this is not 100%.
got some brand new Radeon
but it is a
280Xs in
good
there.
chunk of them. And I don't understand it. But then again,
Why?
I
why?
don't
Why
understand
would they?
NVIDIA limiting monitors. NVIDIA doesn't sell monitors and adapters.
Can
Why should they limit
anybody think of a reason why AMD would not want you to use a different DVI to HDMI adapter?
Well, there's only one thing I can think of, and it's the generic Apple excuse. We don't want to support other people's hardware. If you are going to use an adapter, we want to be able to guarantee that this adapter has passed our quality checks.
That's very unlike AMD.
On the other hand, it is very like AMD, and it is just dumb.
Any idea?
It's not
Josh?
even an HDCP thing. Like, it's not content protection. It's just, oh, your adapter broke? Well, you should buy a new Radeon card. No, I don't think that's what they're going for. I don't think they're in a secret partnership with Monster Cable, because I don't think Monster Cable does that EEPROM either.
Maybe it's Beats. I mean, they lost HTC.
It's Dr. Dre. Blame it on him.
Alan,
I
you were
mean,
going
these
to say
adapters
something?
aren't doing anything like unique or special, right? There's a standard, and it either follows the standard or it doesn't, right?
It's just a friggin' pass-through with a couple of crossovers. There's nothing special in it.
Right.
But-
so it adheres to the specs for both sides, and it makes the connection, right? It's just an electrical connection thing, right? Or is there a chip in there doing something?
Well, you know what? Upon
It's a
boot,
little
it could send
tiny
a
chip
code
sitting
through
on
the
one of the
output
IIC
to a chip
connectors.
that then cuts it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then IIC connector cuts out the audio. Boom,
Yeah.
gone. And they even do a little software check to a query to see, is this there? Is it present? Then okay, you get audio. If it's not, you don't. I don't understand this. And as much as I don't understand putting it there, I'm baffled at the fact that they think people wouldn't notice. We're techies. We tear apart your stuff. We will destructively scan your chips just to be able to find out what the circuit tracings are like. You throw something like that in there and figure we're not going to notice it?
I buy
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
don't know.
adapters, but I guess I never use the audio from DVI to HDMI.
No.
Nobody ever
And why would
uses
you?
audio from DVI
Because
to
it's an
HDMI.
HDMI plug.
Weird.
But on the other hand, why would you do that in the first place?
So maybe you have heard about this Radeon R9 290X. AMD announced this super awesome new graphics card that I haven't tested yet at the GPU 14 event in Hawaii on a live stream. That was a little,
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Oh,
Sorry.
just book them, Dano.
Jack. Lord.
and so they announced it and they said you'll be able to pre-order it. and it'll come with Battlefield 4. Well, that never happened in the U.S. for some reason, but one way to do a pre-order with a 290X and Battlefield 4 is to buy a whole new system. And Main Gear...
Because I need a whole new system.
Main Gear, CyberPower, and iBuyPower have now partnered with AMD.
But not Origin.
Yeah, weird. Not Origin. It's so weird.
It's been conspiracy theory week.
It really has. It really has. Actually, we'll talk about that after this. Main Gear prepares for Battlefield 4 with exclusive PCs featuring the new Radeon R9 290X. So we don't know anything about its specs publicly. We don't know anything about its performance publicly. We don't know how much it's going to cost publicly, but you can buy it in this system, and it'll come with Battlefield 4. It just seems weird to me.
Did we link to that leak?
Which one? I guess not.
That it'll ship on 10/18?
No, the
The
R90
pricing?
leak.
Oh, I don't know. That there was a 290 as well as a 290X?
Well, yeah, and the specs on the side of the box.
Oh, nice.
That wasn't us, but
Yeah, weird. So, it's kind of interesting. You can buy the Shift, starts at $37.89 with two AMD Radeon R9 290X in Crossfire, while the F131 starts at $21.99 with one R9 290X.
And you don't need an over-the-top connector.
You do not. No. We talked about that already.
We're OTT free.
Yep.
If you know what I mean.
What?
go on the down low.
What? So let me just mention real quickly before we get over to our picks the Origin PC thing, because I guess we never really published a news story on it. I meant to. Origin PC announced rather publicly in a press release that they were dropping AMD Radeon graphics cards from their systems. Origin PC, for people who don't know, is a boutique system builder, kind of like Main Gear, CyberPower, iBuyPower, those guys. And they were dropping AMD Radeon cards because of issues with support and customer complaints about quality. I remember getting that email and going, oh well, who cares? And then I moved on, right? It was kind of like, that's a stupid reason right before they're getting ready to launch a new graphics card that you may sell several systems with those graphics cards in it. And your reasoning seems kind of weird. Now, a friend of mine, I'll call him a friend, he's a good guy. He writes some odd things sometimes. Charlie, over at Semi-Accurate, did some digging, and he did some good journalism up to a certain point on this, where he basically claimed that due to, he had conversations with people at NVIDIA and other system builders who said that NVIDIA had basically paid Origin PC to drop AMD from their system. They probably didn't pay him cash. They probably paid them, hey, we will match what you would have made in AMD sales with advertising money or something like that. And the claim was that NVIDIA had made this offer to other system builders, but nobody else really took them up on it, at least not publicly at this point. All this is...
Because it wouldn't be
three that are
immediately
selling
obvious
brand new
if
AMD
someone
cards.
dropped
Hey.
all of their AMD graphics cards.
Josh, say again.
I said it wouldn't be immediately obvious that a boutique system builder dropped all of their AMD graphics cards.
Well, so... there's a whole lot of conspiracy going on here. Did NVIDIA do it? NVIDIA's marketing has always been known to be very aggressive. Do I think that they would have said, hey, if you go NVIDIA exclusive, we'll get you this side bonus? I see that being a possibility for sure. And I think one of the big tip-offs is the fact that Origin published a press release about it. Usually, if you have customer complaints and issues with the company, if you want to stop carrying them, you just stop carrying them. Like, I agree completely with Charlie's statement that, if you drop a certain motherboard manufacturer, you don't see a press release going out about, hey, we decided to go with to drop Gigabyte motherboards from our options here because of that reason, or MSI motherboards for this reason, or whatever it is. It just doesn't happen, and it's
and as
it's
you
bad
mentioned that,
business.
if I can interrupt you, Ryan.
Yeah.
And I quote, primarily, the overall issues have been stability of the cards, overheating, performance, scaling, and the amount of time to receive new drivers on both desktop and mobile GPUs. That is the official stance of Origin as to why they dropped it.
Not all of that not all of that is wrong, I guess, right? So there were
but
scaling
stability?
issues. There were scaling
Overheating?
issues. There were overheating issues with the
if you use
7990
two 7990s side by side.
with
Yes.
one slot between them.
Yes.
I mean, you could find specific instances, maybe specific instances of each of those things happening in its own. And maybe the company decided that they didn't want to deal with it anymore. And maybe it was convenient timing that somebody came and knocked on the door and said, hey, if you maybe do this thing, it'll be cool. And they're like, hey, you know what? We were kind of thinking about that anyway. It simplifies our product line. It makes our support easier, whatever.
Yeah, but how does Apple handle this when they go from one to another?
They
just say,
announce the new product line and say, this is what we're using.
yeah.
They don't bash the company that they left, which is what happened here, and which is what makes it more aggravating than it should be, right? If somebody came to me and said, "Hey, Origin PC doesn't offer any AMD cards anymore," and I went to their site and I looked through the builder and you couldn't configure an AMD card anymore, I'd be like, okay, that was their decision that they made, fine. But to issue a press release and to be very public about it seems. I don't want to say it seems fishy, like I believe in some kind of grand conspiracy. It just seems out of place. It seems like it's not necessary. It shouldn't have happened. And if that's a decision
kinda
you
like me
made,
saying,
just go for it.
No matter what you hear, I do not have chlamydia.
It's not exactly like that because you do.
Maybe
wait.
maybe they just
So
did it to
it makes it
preempt.
even more valid. So
Maybe they just did it to preempt people asking. I don't know.
Maybe. No, because what should have happened is if I noticed it and then I sent an email to them and say, hey, how come you guys aren't carrying the new R9 290X? They should have said, then they should have offered that statement, right? And then they could have gone to AMD and said, look, we didn't try to make a big deal out of it. People started asking us questions, so we did this. But to go out of their way to send out a press release about it seems stupid. Yeah,
Especially when Main Gear, iBuyPower, and CyberPower are all offering brand new AMD cards.
Sure, and they sell
Something
NVIDIA
else-
cards too. Go ahead, Alan.
Something else that seemed odd was on that day that everybody was talking about it, I went to the press area of their site and I didn't see that press release.
It was out there.
I know it was out
definitely
there. But I don't think
oh.
it's not like it's plastered right on there, you know.
Well, yeah, but it's like ASUS launching brand new cards. They don't put it on their news site until about 3 or 4 days after the news blast.
Oh.
I would also point out that Ken wanted me to point out, especially in Charlie's story, he talks about that they still are selling AMD CPUs, and Charlie kind of goes into this rant about that there's more driver support required for a processor than for a graphics card, and I disagree with that.
yeah, AMD's
What driver?
HCI drivers, everything else,
Works fine.
they're really solid.
Yeah, and they're not comparable. And he says CPUs, and I'm assuming that we can group in like whole platforms, right? The platform driver and the graphics driver are completely separate. They're very different. They have very different stability and performance concerns. And nobody that I know of has ever complained about AMD platforms. So the argument that it's obviously an NVIDIA thing because they still sell AMD CPUs and they drop only GPUs is kind of a bad argument to take. But Charlie has a lot of sources. He has a lot of good information. I don't know what to believe and what not to believe. I don't know. Maybe a lot of it is true, and he also kind of exaggerates things and makes things a bigger deal than they should. But it's an interesting story that I think matters very little to the reader and to the gamer as a whole. It's if we get to the point where Main Gear only sells AMD and Falcon Northwest only sells NVIDIA and like this kind of separation, it doesn't matter. But that's not going to happen. Like I know the guys at Main Gear, they have really good relationships with NVIDIA. They have really good relationships with AMD. Obviously, they were the only partner at that live event. But anyway, let's move on. I don't want to spend too much time on that. If you want to follow that drama, just be on Twitter, I guess, and do that. So, hardware software picks of the week. Let's run through these pretty quick so I can play some Battlefield 4. Question mark. My pick is. We're getting a dual socket 2011 motherboard in very soon with a pair.
K7M, right?
Yeah, No, 2011 socket LGA 2011.
K7M Plus.
12 core Xeon processors, and I needed some coolers for it. Now I was looking at these Noctua coolers that were freaking enormous and also expensive, like $90. And I finally asked ASUS, hey, which ones do you recommend for this board? I don't know if these Noctuas are even going to fit on there in a pair. And they recommended the Dynatron R17, which is a really catchy name, as most heat sinks and stuff tend to be. And this, don't break it, don't break it.
Oh.
This is
You got
this is
grease
the
all
unit.
over it.
This is the unit here. And what's interesting is that, so it comes with a, what is this, a 120? No.
It's called a fan.
It's an 80 millimeter fan.
80.
Here's a good heatsink, but you notice it has rubber clips on it. They're not really clips, but it's, to try to help keep the fan quiet when you install
Rubber penetrators.
I was trying not to use that term. But you just pull that through, so there's no screws you have to use, nothing like that, and then it should keep vibrations to a minimum in terms of sound levels when you use that. And it's rated up to, how many watts are we looking at? 160 watts of cooling capability.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So we're going to use a pair of these on a platform that's going to power our streaming configuration here. So this is the Dynatron, what is it, R17? And the best part, if I can get these penetrators in, all 4 of them.
Somewhere behind me, I do have one of the first Dynatron copper
For an AMD
heat sinks.
FX, or for AMD
What?
for an Athlon part?
No, I mean, it was well before that.
Oh, and the
A6?
best part about this is if you look at this page, while the Noctuas were like $90, these are $29.99. That's
Inexpensive.
That's a little bit less. All right, who's up next? Jeremy, what do you got?
All right, well, this may not be completely adhering to Colleen rules, but who has not spent a lot of time reading this particular publisher? This is just a random assortment of the books that I just had handy, but come on, if you've never heard of O'Reilly Publishing, you really need to go over there. I don't think they have any specials right now, but seriously, this is some of the best written tech books that you can find. They're constantly updated, and hey, if you know who he is, then good on you. If you don't, and you're an up-and-coming techie, give the site a shot.
All right. And Josh.
Yeah.
So much better than Jeremy's. If you want to read about Windows 2000.
Hey Josh,
It's the
before you get into your actual pick, what's our phrase for this week? Hurry.
Flotsam.
And jetsam.
Exactly.
Flotsam and jetsam. You want to spell that for our viewers?
I'm the only person.
If you don't know
I'm the only
what it
person here
is, you're not
qualified
allowed to
finish that statement.
participate.
I know you're a submariner, right? You're very familiar with flotsam and jetsam.
Flotsam and jetsam.
FLOTSOM.
The Jetsons were in the future, and the Flintstones were in the
Flotsam.
past.
Not the Jetsons.
The Flintstones and the
Jetsons.
Jetsons. Flintstones and the Jetsons. Bedrock and wherever. All right. Anyway, go ahead. With your pick.
Okay.
Let's go. Come on,
What
come
am
on.
I talking about? Oh, the price isn't terrible. Funny we saw these things. A couple of months ago. These were like $700 to $900 in price without cooling.
Yeah.
And now
How about that?
you can get an FX 9370 with liquid cooling, self-contained, for $289.
What do you-
Or most people would pay $290 because
What do
a penny.
you? Hold on. What do you tell
What?
somebody that bought this processor 2 months ago? I mean,
You really should have waited.
that's not even really funny. How'd you
That's
pay
a lot of money down the
$850 for
drain.
that 9590? Oof.
Well, yeah, but you bought a system around it too,
Well, you didn't have to, but
sort of.
yeah. All right. And so this one is 289, and then the 9590, which is the 300 megahertz faster,
Yeah, it's
model
4.7 to 5 gig.
is 389.
Yeah.
$100 more. Also comes
And they're
with a
not
self-contained
bad
cooler.
prices considering the speed of
No.
the processor and the cooling.
I think at $389 with the included water cooler, which is, let's say that's worth what, $60, $70 maybe.
80 to 100
I'm
depending.
gonna go $60. So you're talking about a $300 to $320 processor.
65. Do I hear 65? 70, 70,
Because you don't
70?
get those with Intel processors. So I think that's interesting. Maybe now they'll finally send us one.
You think?
No,
No.
I don't.
No.
All right, last but not least, Alan, what do you got?
So it's something that Ryan already ordered, actually.
Boom. Ahead of you.
That sneaky guy. It's too rich for my blood at the moment, but
Aw.
I'm strongly looking at it. There's a new thing from Nest called the Nest Protect, which is basically just a fire alarm from Nest, but it's like a Wi-Fi connected fire alarm that has like all sorts of really cool.
It's a smoke
like it-
detector.
Yeah,
Does
it's
it play
smoke
Angry
detector,
Birds?
but it tells you when it's about to go off, and you can just wave at it instead of trying to, shake a towel at it or whatever you do to
Right.
turn your fire alarm off. And it tells you when there's smoke, and it tells you what room, and it pings your phone and all this other kind of crap. Pretty cool.
It's $129, and it's a smoke detector and carbon monoxide detector. Now, a carbon monoxide detector is going to cost you probably $60 on its own, and
Yep.
then a smoke detector is like $30, maybe $20 or something like that if you buy the cheap one. And so what it does is it says, "Warning: smoke detected in the kitchen," and it uses a voice, as a woman's voice. Because you can have multiple of these in your house.
Could you have
Kitchen
be like,
is hot.
Eat it.
There's a fire! That would be pretty awesome, actually, if you had
We need to hack that thing.
modded voices. So if it's like you're cooking and it starts to detect smoke, it'll warn you, and you give it and you can just wave at it, and it kind of ignores it, which is pretty cool. And then it has a nightlight feature on it as well. It has motion detectors and stuff like that. So if it's dark and you walk down the hallway, it will illuminate when it detects motion as like a little temporary nightlight type thing too. It's expensive. It's not as expensive as you might think it is because, again, it includes carbon monoxide. And isn't your family worth it? Nope. Ken says no.
have you met my family?
No, I haven't. So I ordered one for the office here because we don't have a smoke detector at all, actually, and I was fearful for Ken's life, and then I ordered some for the house to see how that all works. And it does cool stuff like if you have a Nest thermostat, they know they're on the same network, and if it detects carbon monoxide leak, it will turn off the furnace because that is the most common culprit of CO emission, right? So, other than Josh.
No, that's nocturnal emission.
Yeah.
God.
No, that's me. I'm the smoker.
God, I should have ended this show just right before that. Just a little. It's a neat little device, and also because it has other sensors, it has motion sensors in it. It will also help the thermostat tell you. You know how it goes into like an auto away state. The Nest thermostat would go into auto away if it doesn't detect motion for a while. But your thermostat's usually in one spot, whereas if you have multiple of these, it'll be able to tell if there's motion in the house from multiple areas as well. So yeah, it's kind of cool. It's a neat little device, and I think I heard, who was it said? I think it was somebody on TNT this morning from yesterday's episode said that Nest is actually building the Internet of Things while everybody else talks about it.
What are we gonna do next?
Oh, what's the next things? They did thermostats and they did smoke detectors. What will Nest make next?
Toilet
Yeah, well, I
sensors.
still turn off UPnP.
Is that a number one or number two? How much should I flush?
I'm
Should
gonna
I
go
warn
with
them if it's going to clog?
I'm gonna go with security system.
Oh,
I'm gonna go with camera, motion detector, security system.
Don't do it with the Raspberry Pi.
But don't do it with the Raspberry
I think there's too much infrastructure to that.
Maybe they could outsource the monitoring.
Yeah, no, there.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 5 or 6 home automation companies right now that you could totally hook up with, which would
okay. How
just
about a home locking
already give them an
system?
infrastructure.
You know, it listens, and if it doesn't hear any noises from TVs, people talking, whatever, locks the house down.
I'd be okay with any of that.
Him doing that.
Because everybody goes to bed,
Locks, door locks. Yeah.
locks the house down.
Yep. I like that. I'm in. It'll be $800.
Yep.
Yep. All right, everybody. That's going to be our episode. Thank you to Carbonite for sponsoring our 272nd episode.
Do you know in like 700 episodes, I'm going to be in my 50s?
Maybe your 30s.
You won't be the only one.
PCPer.com/podcast is the URL to share. So people can have all the fun with this podcast that we do every week. PCPer.com/live is where you can come see us live Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And if you go to the website, go to this website right here. On this side, there's a little, here it says upcoming events, and it has a schedule of upcoming events. And you can click get notified when we go live. It takes you to the subscribe page. You can subscribe. It's totally awesome. Everybody should sign up. And don't forget the code word, secret phrase for our giveaway of Batman Arkham Origins, courtesy of NVIDIA and GeForce, is Flotsam Jetsam.
Flotsam
Flotsam
and
and
Jetsam.
Jetsam.
Yeah, no, I got it, guys.
Because you know what? Read up on maritime law. It's
I'm not
fascinating
going to.
stuff.
And for bonus points, Legan and Derelict.
Ooh.
But you get no bonus for anything, so you don't really have to put that in there.
No.
All right, everybody, that's gonna do it. We'll see you next week, maybe, or the week after. We'll see you soon. I'm Ryan Shrout.
Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malventano.
Bye.